Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Arvada City Council workshop for today, October 14th, 2025. Ms. Rush, if you'll do the roll call.
Mayor Simpson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mormon.
Here.
Councilmember Ambrose. Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Here.
Councilmember Marriott.
Here.
Councilmember Rupert.
Here.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to excuse Councilmember Ambrose from tonight's meeting.
Thank you. All votes are cast. That passes 6-0. Thank you very much. Councilmember Ambrose is traveling for work. All right, we have need of a workshop this evening on everyone's favorite topic. It is the city manager's budget presentation. Mr. Archer, come on. Or Mr. Wick, please, for the introduction. My apologies.
No problem. Mayor and council, thank you very much for having our presentation tonight. Also in the audience here, we have our leadership team who is present with us. Not only should there be any questions, but also our supportive team for this budget recommendation that's coming in front of you tonight. So I'd like to give you an overview of what you're going to be hearing about before Finance Director Brian Archer comes and gives the remainder of most of the presentation. But an overview of tonight's presentation is that this is the second year of a two-year budget. So changes to the budget are made for what we believe is needed for 2026. So unlike what will happen next year, where we're going to be bringing a full two-year budget to you, this is just the second year of a two-year budget where we make adjustments, modifications, and address needs and requests that we have. So what is different this time is that for next year, I have set organization priorities for 2026, and the objective is to identify and fund what we can accomplish in 2026 as an organization. So there's some specificity to this that I'll be talking about here shortly. So the city's vision and the city council's vision is to dream big and deliver. And to dream big and deliver, we have to provide the organization with a vision, and what that vision is that we will create a future-ready Arvada by December 31st of 2030. The vision is to become the most livable and high-performing city in Colorado as measured by resident and team member satisfaction, service performance, and regional recognition. Our city's reputation will have us being the region's leader. Arvada will be the city that others turn to for best in model practices, innovation, and the ability to execute on city council's vision and strategic plan. So the three strategic results that are prioritized for 2026 are: priority 1, city council strategic result, physical and technology systems, improve city and community connectivity by providing reliable and accessible physical and technology systems, with an emphasis on strategic goal number 5, which is to ensure the security of the physical and technology systems while also investigating and holding accountable those who put our systems at risk. As you know, even right now, we're experiencing some internet outages here at the city, and I think it's another clear indicator how important our physical and technology systems are. Everything is tied to our network and our electronic and communication systems, and this has essentially become a core service that the city has to deliver on. And this is not only related to our internal city team, but also most everyone in our community also relies on our system if you think about water billing and some of the other services that we provide electronically. So this is a very important priority. Priority number 2 is a focus on homelessness. This City Council strategic results is a collaboration and coordination with nonprofits, local organizations, and regional governments to advance services to individuals experiencing homelessness or at risk of experiencing homelessness. The emphasis is on strategic goal number 4, which is work with community partners to find a suitable location for the provision of homeless services outside of Old Town. As we know, homelessness continues to be a pressing issue for our community, for our council, for our city team, and we need to have focus and prioritization on how we are going to address that for the city of Arvada. Number 3 is focus on economy and infrastructure. This priority is to bolster a vibrant and local community by delivering efficient and cost-effective services and support for businesses in Arvada, with an emphasis on strategic goal number 3, which is to maintain and enhance public assets to attract residents, businesses, workers, and visitors. I'm also recommending the strategic use of $12 million from reserves to invest in right-of-way infrastructure, which includes things like streets, curb, gutter, sidewalks, etc., funding to address homelessness, and also funding to continue our reinvestment in Old Town. We are recommending a $10 million use of reserves for right-of-way infrastructure, $1 million for homelessness, $1 million to Old Town reinvestment. In addition, the budget proposal also includes addressing mandatory needs to address new laws, regulations, and mandates, as well as maintenance of a competitive total compensation package for our city employees. In tonight's budget presentation, you will find the proposed 2026 budget, and all of our positions align with the strategy that I've just outlined. And at this point, I'd like to introduce to you Brian Archer, our Finance Director, who will now take us through some additional detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wick. Mr. Archer, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Thank you, City Manager Wick. So many of these slides should look familiar to you all as we try to make the budget process consistent from year to year. As you know, we're in October right now, which is presentation of the budget and hopefully approval by you all next week. Dawn just covered many of the themes that we had with this second year of a 2-year budget. Do want to point out a couple of things. Revenues do remain flat, while for Arvada, that means we are still growing. We're just not growing as fast as we've grown in the past. And so for 2026, we're assuming a 2% growth in sales tax, our largest revenue source. If you remember a few years ago, those revenue growths were in the vicinity of 4 and 5%. Operating expenditures are remaining in line with budgets, as our leadership team and all of their staff are doing a wonderful job controlling costs, but they are increasing. And you will hear tonight a little bit about how it's becoming more expensive to just keep the lights on. Our CIP program continues to see increasing costs. While they're not increasing as fast as they were before, they are growing, and we are struggling to meet the needs of that program area. In the budget book, you will notice that we have put some projects aside to make sure that we can focus on the ones that we can get done. You heard Dawn talk about that. We're trying to make sure we can get done the items we identify for next year. And then the last two Dawn already spoke to. This addresses any mandatory or new regulatory items. And then we want to maintain a competitive package, as our team is our most important part of the organization. Some information for the budget. If you don't always carry this with you, which I don't think you probably do, unlike myself, you can access the budget there. The total appropriation that we will be asking for next week, $382,736,177. That is across all funds for the entire city. Includes the general fund, our tax funds, our utility funds, everything. Some highlights. Overall, we have about $15 million that we're asking to increase to our 2025 budget. Dawn spoke about the $12 million of strategic reinvestment. We have 6 positions. We'll talk about those here in just a minute. And all of our funds balance throughout all the years of the model. And what does balance mean? Balance means that at the end of the year, if you take your revenues, you take your beginning fund balance, you add your revenues, you minus your expenditures, and you minus your city council identified fund balance goal, that we are in a positive situation. All of our funds balance in all the years except the 3 that you see up there, and we'll speak to that at the end of the presentation. So quickly on the pay plan, we are proposing for next year a 4.9% increase. That is for all positions. That includes the accumulation of steps. So anybody who's eligible for a step, and that is a 1.8%. So that step could be anywhere from a 2% growth pattern to a 7%, depending on what position you have and where you are in your life cycle. And then a market rate change all employees is 3.13%. So that's the entire city. Sworn, non-sworn, you add everything up, and that's a 3.1% change. You will notice we did identify for sworn positions that their market rate is growing a little faster than the rest of the organization, so their growth is at 4%. You might ask, how does that work? Basically, if you take the market rates of other positions that may be growing at 2% or 3%, in this case, sworn is at 4%, and others in the organization as well are 4%. You add all those up, that's how you get to the 3.13. Healthcare, unfortunately, for the first time in the last 6 years, we've seen some growth. So we're expecting about a 20% growth in healthcare, quite a lot. If you remember the years past, we've had 0 or 1. The good news is that we've built up a reserve in our medical trust, and we're going to use that reserve to reduce the increase to our employees. So we're asking a 5% increase of our employees, and we're going to use the reserve to offset the rest of that and look to hopefully change our pattern moving forward. We're doing a bunch of items in the organization to get healthier, and we'll see how that goes. Mayor, it looks like you have a question.
I do. Will this exhaust the medical trust? So if,
It will not.
okay, so feasibly, we won't have a 15% or 20% spike then in 2027?
No. In fact, we're using roughly about 12% of that reserve to do this, with the hopes we'll probably expect to use it again in 2027, and then hopefully catch up by 2028.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Archer.
And then a much, much deeper dive will happen with Gabrielle and her team on the 28th on the pay plan. And I'd like to turn it back over to City Manager Wick to talk about our whirlwind and our wig.
Thank you, Brian. So a couple of illustrations that I would like to share with the council is, first I want to talk about the whirlwind, which is where a lot of our work takes place. And essentially what that is all the daily work that we have to do, you know, answering inquiries, addressing projects we're already working on, you know, taking care of the normal course of business consumes a pretty substantial amount of time, which doesn't leave a lot of time then to work on those really important goals, what we call here our WIGs, our wildly important goals, which are the 3 that I just gave to the City Council. This really illustrates why it's so important that we narrow our focus and have really specific goals that we're trying to reach, is because we need to focus our attention on what's really important, because we know that we have, you know, this whirlwind going on every day of all the things that we have to continue to work on. So the 20% of the important goals, I covered these at the beginning, but essentially for our technology systems, we're making investment in our technology security upgrades, as well as doing some of our clubhouse security updates as well. So this is an example of where we're putting some of that money to help meet that goal.
Sorry, I had a question.
Sure.
Can you clarify what the clubhouse security updates mean?
That's at the golf courses. Is that correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was just the name of an app or something, a program or something.
No. It's they use some different technology at the clubhouse or the golf courses from what we do here that require security upgrades.
Okay, thank you for that.
And then priority 2, homelessness. So the $1 million I talked about there, the city team is currently working on vetting out the exact plan of what this money is going to be used for. We'll be coming back to our council to report out for all of those details, but essentially we're looking at improving street outreach, supplementing Old Town services with a team of people that have the capability of performing not only street outreach work for homelessness and security, but also acting as ambassadors and helping us with some of the routine maintenance, such as things like power washing, picking up trash, biohazard material, things like that. And then allocating $70,000 to the unhoused camp cleanups, which that number is predicated on our historic use of funds to engage in camp cleanups. $250,000 to support transitional housing support, and $435,000 for severe weather sheltering, which you all might remember is from the countywide IGA that was just recently approved.
I have a question, Mayor.
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem Mormon.
So if Suburban Suite Studios program is, I understand, funded by the state
Yes.
currently, and there's a question of whether that will continue.
Yes.
Are we planning to budget something if that that funding does not continue?
At this time, we are not. The cost of the program is pretty expensive, and so for us to be able to continue to support Suburban Studios would really require a remake and reallocation of dollars in order to support that. So this is why we made another application to the state to see if we can secure those funds.
And do we know when we'll know the answer?
I believe that we should know about whether or not we'll be funded for 2026 by the end of this year.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wick, quickly on those, and I understand if we maybe need to go look this up, but are those particular funds, could they be impacted by the housing and everything happening with the state and DOLA, or is that a separate sort of funding pot that wouldn't be impacted? This could also be for you, Ms. Morris, I would think.
So you're asking whether or not grants that we might receive might be impacted by what's going on at the state level right now?
Correct.
So
Well, specific to the governor's executive order, but as it would pertain to this work with the unhoused population in Suburban Studios.
So I would need to go back and look at the executive order to double check this, but my recollection is that there was a carve out for any sort of grant funds related to homelessness.
Okay.
So it covers a whole lot of grants in transportation and all kinds of other areas, but I don't think it includes grants related to homelessness. But I can double check that for you.
That would be great. Thank you, Ms. Morris.
And then number 3, local economy. I've talked with the council before about the strategic alignment of our key pillars of economic development in the city, that being our chamber, our Arvada Economic Development, our Urban Renewal Authority, and the Visitor Center, related to how we can develop an overarching strategy that all of our organizations can get behind to help us drive and improve our local economy. We've already started that work, and we will be reporting out here soon on what the overall objective statement is going to be for all of our organizations to focus on economic development.
Quickly, Councilmember Davis.
Yes, thank you. I am very happy to see that we are devoting some money to our businesses across the spectrum here in Arvada. I want to make sure that we take care of our businesses just as much as we take care of our residents. I think it's really important that's just having a goal like this and the reinvestment will be more attractive for other businesses to come to Arvada.
Yes, we agree with that completely. And what really goes along with that is that we have to make some strategic investments, and one of those happens to be around infrastructure. So an important component of economic development is to ensure that we have an appropriate level of infrastructure, that we're maintaining that appropriately, that we remain an attractive community to businesses that are looking at relocating here into the city. And I think, as the council is very familiar with, also make sure that we're constantly working at maintaining our streets, curb, gutter, sidewalk infrastructure as well. So that's that $10 million strategic investment. Our team is currently working on designing that plan, which we will also be bringing back to the council.
Perfect. Mayor Pro Tem
All
Mormon.
right, well, I think you may have just answered my question, but specifically the $10 million that we're adding on to from our reserve, we're going to see a plan about how that's going to be spent,
Yes.
then, correct? Okay.
Yes, yep, and the team is working on the development of that now.
Excellent, thank you.
Same with the $1 million Old Town.
Councilmember Davis.
Oh, sorry.
No, that was my fault. I'm up here pressing all the buttons, and I think I've even voted a couple times. So the $10 million, this is going to be across the city, not just in the Old Town area?
It won't be necessarily in the Old Town area, and there are a few options that the team is looking at of what to do with that, whether it would be across the city or whether we would try to focus on one particular area to make the investment. So that's yet to be determined, and as I said, we'll be coming back to the council related to that plan.
And Mayor Pro Tem Mormon.
So the 10 million coming from our reserves, did we look at getting more from our reserves and what the implications of that would be? How did we land on the 10 million?
So the way we landed on the 10 million was it was really an evaluation of how much work can the team handle in 2026. As I was talking about at the beginning, our focus of the work for this budget, since it's the second year of a 2-year, is to make sure that we can actually execute on what the city council will approve. So the 10 million additional investment is based upon what the team believes that we can handle in terms of the projects, the inspections, making sure the work gets done correctly, and also making sure that we can line up contractors to be able to do the work. The last thing we want to do is request significant funding from the city council only to find out that either the contractors can't deliver that, we can't find enough contractors to do that, or that the team is not set up to successfully manage these large construction projects. So the way that we landed on the 10 million was predicated on that information, and then our intention is that we're going to monitor this through 2026 and see how we perform. And then we will be looking in the 27-28 budget for additional allocations.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Councilmember Rupert.
So I want to clarify, the 10 million is something distinct from trying to catch up the deficiency in our streets program. Is that accurate?
No, it is to help us address the deficit.
Okay, so that's the same problem, because we've talked about the rating of our streets, and we've
Yes.
had many public comments about the quality, and this is directed at exactly that problem?
Yes.
Thank you.
And then next is the $1 million Old Town reinvestment. As you know, we have a Old Town reinvestment plan that has priorities related to how we will reinvest in Old Town. And for us to wait until we have all of the funding needed to be able to do that project would be sometime down the road. We can take smaller chunks of that reinvestment plan and start doing the work and reinvesting in there now, and that's what the intention of this is. And again, this $1 million reinvestment into Old Town was built upon what work we can do, how successful we think that we can be with this given the time frame of 2026 to work with. And again, this is work that our infrastructure team is working on to determine exactly what that $1 million will go toward reinvestment in Old Town. So that'll be another plan that we'll be coming back to the council with. And then finally, one of the new positions, and Brian will go into this in a little bit more in depth shortly, is the economic development position that was requested for the AIDA team. And the importance of this is that the AIDA team is a lean team and organization, and they need some additional assistance in order to try to work on our goals related to bolstering our local economy. And part of the budget strategy this year was to invest in those positions and those projects that could help drive return for the city. And this is one that we believe will help drive return in economic development for the city.
Councilmember Rupert.
So I'm interested in how we are going to use this position. Are there specific goals in mind, or is this we're going to hire a person and to then figure out what the goals for this person will be?
Yeah, sure. So Isa, the director of economic development, and her team in CED is working on what this position will do, but they do have an overall plan for what they want this position to be able to accomplish, and we'll be bringing that to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so then the whirlwind really makes up the the remainder of our work that we do every day, and Brian is now going to take it from here and share with you our budget work around the daily work that we are doing.
Thank you. I will say the only thing that I'm disappointed is there's not a little Tasmanian devil popping out of the top of this.
We'll add that next year.
Thank you. I want a Tasmanian devil.
All right, we can do that. So again, on the Whirlwind, this is really keeping the lights on, the day-to-day work, all of the, it's delivering all the great services that our community is grown to love and be used to. And so what you'll notice this year as we dig into these items is the team really respected the second year of a 2-year budget and really identified what has changed since last year, and that's what we tried to fund. And so there are 6 positions that we're requesting this year. Dawn talked a little bit about the one in blue up there, our economic development position. I do want to point out the other 5 that you see have offsets. They're either offset by temporary wages, departmental cuts, current positions that maybe we're changing to address a different need in the organization, or they're term limited. So their positions, for example, our risk and claims analyst has a 3-year cycle that they're going to go out and try to do additional subrogation and prove that they can actually make that position work. And if it does work, then we will continue it. If after a couple of years it does not, we'll pivot and look at something else. And so each one of those is done that way. The only one that is not, again, is the economic development specialist, which we're hoping to have that area really get aggressive in pursuing and retaining businesses and helping our community grow. And so part of the plan that he's and our team will bring back will address those needs. This is a high-level look at the total that has been proposed to you all by work system. So our 5 work systems, CED, infrastructure, OSE, Safe Community, and VCN. As we dive a little bit deeper into CED, you'll notice a $46,000 request, and this is really for just a couple of items. They're software related, both our planning, short-term rental monitoring, and our IEDA data sources. And if you'd like to follow along, all of these items are listed on page 63 through page 67. On our infrastructure, we have 3 main program areas that are requesting additional funding. One is parking, and that is to bring our current parking program in-house. So we're looking to add some efficiencies there and not just focus on Old Town. We're looking to expand beyond Old Town. I see Councilmember Pfeiffer shaking his head. He's told us that for the last couple of years. And so these are the costs related to do that, but this will have an offset as well. So ultimately, yes, we have to ask for the budget, but there is a revenue source for this. On our facilities side, we have increased costs related to our facilities. This is really just moving towards what our ultimate needs are. This is not funding all of their needs, but this is getting them a little bit further and also putting additional safety and security from a physical standpoint, not necessarily from a technology standpoint. And then finally, for you that have been here for a few years, you will remember that we did a buildings plan, an Amoresco plan, and again, we're still funding that. So this is an additional $300,000 towards that. This does not fully fund it, but it gets us closer. So each year we're walking towards that.
Excellent. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Mormon.
So under parking, we had a presentation about paid parking in Old Town. What's the next steps on that, and is that going to be something that might help contribute to revenue this cycle?
It will absolutely help once we get there. This is kind of the phase 1 part where you're going to be putting in the infrastructure to make that happen and bring the people on board.
Okay.
So we have to buy, we already have 1 vehicle. We have to buy an additional vehicle. We have to hire some staff members. We have to put in, and I don't remember the term for them, but the kiosks, I think is the proper term. And then we can look at paid parking after that. So it's going to take some time still, but yes, this is step 1 in that direction.
Okay, thank you.
And just to elaborate on the parking, because you mentioned to Councilmember Pfeiffer, I remember this conversation from both the last 2 years in terms of enforcing around the city in particular, where we have signs. It's not paid parking, but it's enforced parking. And so I will just reiterate sort of my comment about that, about socializing to those neighborhoods. As somebody who lives in a neighborhood with permit-only signs, I know that they're never enforced, and all of my neighbors sort of accommodate to that. So being able to have some sort of socialization to those neighborhoods, make sure they know where they can get the permit for their own cars, for their visitors, et cetera.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
I want-
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Can I add on that?
Yes, please.
The intentions is around really the high schools, I think you live, which is permitted. I got a lot of complaints, especially from A West too, that, people are parking there. So yeah, to enforce some of that. I think the SRO was doing it maybe on occasion if there was complaints. But if you remember a few years ago, I was really pushing, and we were doing a great job, and we got a lot of positive recognition. But the ADA parking, disabled parking, and fire zones around our shopping centers and stuff, I think we need to, we said keep it free for me campaign. That's my push. So I know this is budget, but I also want to make sure that's within the scope of what these people will do, is not just Old Town. I also think it should be equitable across the city, that, we should be enforcing all parking across the city, not just in one area.
Yeah. Thank you for that feedback. So next we move to our OSE group, which includes the 5 program areas that you see up there. So finance, our request is related to our external audit. That is getting more expensive. You'll hear more about that next week, actually, with our presentation related to grants and our single audit. And so this is an ask for an increase there. HR, that increase is related to the new position. They have an offset for that. So again, we are asking for the budget, but there's a very large offset. In IT, we have some small licenses that we need to add to. The CMO, while theirs looks quite large, it is not, because it is made up of $85,000 for an election next year, a possible election, and $55,000 for the replacement of Comcate, which is throughout the organization. So really, if you take those 2 items away from their budget, theirs is quite small. And again, it is also related to some small increases on subscriptions. And then legal and risk, we just talked about their position. Same story here. That position has an offset for subrogation. If you remove that, their increase is less than $5,000.
Councilmember Rupert.
Couple things. One, I'm interested in what the offset is for a full-on HR person.
So they have temporary wages today. So they're taking some temporary wages to offset the HR position, and then all the other departments feel so strongly that there is a need for this position that we all pitched in from our budgets.
Gotcha. Also, it shows, not system-wide, but our IT segment shows that there's a 15-person increase in that. Can you explain how that occurred?
Absolutely. We don't have a 15-person increase in IT. So a couple of years ago, the IT team decided that they wanted to take all the IT positions that were living in the various departments and bring them back under the IT umbrella. And so if you look at your position increase by department, it certainly looks like they jumped up 15. They actually came out of the other departments. So it's a net zero. So we had IT positions in, and I'm going to get this wrong, but we had them in infrastructure, utilities, police. Is that correct? Infrastructure, public works, and utilities, and PD.
Not in PD, just from public works and utilities, which is now combined to be infrastructure.
Okay, not PD.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Poley.
If we take a look at Safe Community, that's where our courts and police live. And you will see, again, same story with courts. That's a new position. That position is for 3 years to help implement the full court software and to help fully implement their paperless environment. And the hopes is after 3 years, they will gain some efficiencies and we can revisit that position. On the PD side, they have one of the larger increases, but really when you boil it down, you will notice that these are increases that are being passed on to the PD. So you got VOI, the crime lab, the assessment center. Those are increases they don't have control over. They have contracts with them, and they're being handed to us. There are a 1-year extension for some positions that were supposed to end at the end of this year, and they are adding 1 year to those to see where we are after, in the hopes that we get not fully staffed, but closer to fully staffed next year, and we can reassess. So they just basically moved them to the end of 2026. And then we have some very small equipment, bulletproof vests, and some safety items that need to be added to the PD. Finally, our VCN group, which includes our parks and golf. You will notice on the park side, they have about a $400,000 increase. This is not even half of what they requested related to the growth of the costs that they're seeing for mowing, for the cost of temporary wages, for water, wastewater, and stormwater, as we pay the same increase as everybody else does. So if they go up, it goes up for our parks group as well. And then we have the state mandate on electrical equipment. So as we're buying new equipment, we have to buy electrical, certainly small equipment, and then that is growing in years to come into large equipment. So this helps with that offset as well.
Mayor Pro
Councilmember
Tem
Mormon?
Mormon.
Yeah, thank you. So we got a request from APAC, the Parks Advisory Committee, on revising their parks plan. Is that in the budget, not in the budget?
So that is a one-time request. We'll talk about one-time requests here in a
Okay.
minute. And as of today, it is not in the budget. However, it is on the list to be funded if we have enough one-time funds.
Okay.
So it is like the number one request after that.
Okay,
So.
thank you.
And then on the golf side, they're making some upgrades to their driving range. They feel like if they change some of the functionality, they can increase revenues there. And as you heard from Dawn earlier, we're really trying to push areas that we can offset or grow revenue, and so they're going to do that. They're adding a greens roller at Lake Arbor, which will help improve the greens there. They can charge a little bit more, can be a little bit more competitive to tournaments. And then they have an increase on their vehicle lease. In fact, I think today even, they put in the GPS, today, tomorrow, something like that, out at Westwoods, and so they will be adding some increases related to that. Moving to the one-time. These are the one-time items that we are proposing to add to this year's budget cycle. And you can see each one of these is tied directly to some operating requests. The AIDA office expansion for the position that we're requesting. The performance management and pay plan update, which is related to the position that will be added in HR to help us finalize the pay plan work that started last year. An additional dollars added for the committee, and that is related to required accessibility and online translation. The parking program, this goes to the hard costs, Councilmember Mormon, that you asked about, and then the update to the full court software. So our software, our courts team can really do their jobs more efficiently and effectively. And then a loader in our parks team. They currently, if I remember correctly, and I look to Ryan to correct me on this, but I think they have a loader from the 80s that was a dual hand-me-down?
Yeah, it's from 1989.
1989. And so it works, kind of, but it's also a safety concern. And so once Don heard about this, he directed them to move forward on that immediately. And so we're looking to ask to replace a loader, of which they use a lot. We did want to include unfunded requests. This had started a couple years ago. Council had asked where we were. I want to couch this a little bit. These were the unfunded requests for only 2026. This does not include, as you notice, anything related to implementing the full plan for streets, anything related to implementing the transportation plan, anything related to implementing the full building replacement plan. These are operating items for 2026. Safe Community looks a little bit larger than everybody else because they also had 12 police officers listed in that. They also had a couple of positions in courts, of which we were taking a wait-to-see approach. These positions will be back next year. We will be talking about them again, but we didn't feel like it was something that we could implement next year, and so we put them on hold. And so we can provide the details to council if you would like, but we just wanted to remind you again because you had asked for it. Here's where we are. When we go into next year, you will notice this number will grow significantly when we do a two-year budget.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
So I don't know if I was the one who asked, but I think I might have. So it's just a list of unmet needs.
That's right.
And so we're going to keep that list. I think it would be good for the council to see the itemized list, not just rolled up. If every year that's still a valid ask, we should bubble those up and knock them off when we can, instead of letting them prolong, and next thing you know, we're dealing with a 1989 front, loader or whatever. It would be good, or Windows 2000 problem. So if we can just keep those on the forefront, and then it's just the honeydew list that we probably need to get to.
I would not say this is a honey-do list. We don't really allow those requests right now. These are needs that the
Well, I'm not-
organization can't certainly.
Yeah, I don't mean they're wants. I didn't mean to imply that, but
Okay,
I
fair
get that
enough.
they're needs. But they're things that we have to do.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure every year they're valid,
Okay.
and then that we just keep that rolling, and that we chip away at it. It's just like all the other things we've got to chip away at.
Yeah.
But I don't want any of the groups that apparently they have a need. They're here. We just don't have all the money to fund it all. I just don't want to forget about those because we don't see them that often.
Yeah, you're correct, and we'll start bringing them to you.
Yeah, and maybe there's a way you can present it, how, hey, these were unfunded the last 2 years, we're now bubbling this one up to be funded.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One comment I would make to that, Councilmember Pfeiffer, is that each year when we do the budget process, we ask the departments to talk about their unfunded requests from the year before. And the question that we ask is it still valid? Is it still a need? And then if so, where is that ranking now on the priority list? So that gets to your point of helping us make sure that we never lose track of those things that are waiting.
Oh, but it could move based on priorities and other needs.
Yeah,
Okay, so, but it never falls off unless there's no more need.
correct.
Okay.
And we did have a couple of those things fall off because of changing environmental circumstances that change the need. But that's how we keep track of that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Rupert.
Specific to the SAFE community, in very recent history, we've had difficulty filling positions, not that we were unwilling to allocate funds to them. Is that number there a reflection that we still have unmet hiring needs at PD?
Yes, in the sense that we're still working through the backlog that we had before.
Right.
And once that backlog is filled, then we'll be looking to address those needs.
Okay, so the 2.6 million is not a placeholder for the positions we've been unable to hire for?
No, those positions
Okay.
are currently already budgeted in the budget, in what's being presented to you. These would be additional positions above what we're not
Okay,
having.
so we've made really good progress, I think, this year
have.
in filling the unmet needs. Well done, Chief. And so are we anticipating that we'll be able to fill the remainder of those placeholder positions during the upcoming year?
I think there's hope that we'll be able to do that. To the best of my knowledge, I know a lot of the positions that are in the academy today will come to the force in March, and then they will look to add to that. I think, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but that will get us to about 10 down? That's where we're at now.
We hope to have another 10 for the January academy, in addition to some laterals here or there. But of course, people will resign and retire in between. But we are getting much closer to full staffing.
So optimistic that we could be at full staffing at PD by end of next
Quickly.
year.
Chief Brady, may I request that you come to the mic? I want to make sure the public is able to hear this information as well. And thank you very much.
No problem. Good evening. So to answer your question, yes, our staffing is closer to full staffing than we've been in many years. We have 20 in the academy right now. We are striving to get 10 in the next academy in January. Hopefully we'll make that mark with a lateral here or there, which is very common. But of course, we'll have some retirements and resignations. But our hope is to get to our current staffing for sure next year, and then adding on more positions as we move forward.
So, well done. I think that that's a win for us to be staffed nearly full.
Great, thank you.
I echo that. This has been a top priority for us for a few years now, and so I applaud you and your team for getting us. It's in sight, which is exciting.
Thank you.
Councilmember Davis.
Yes, I was wondering, in this $2 million, does that also include maybe some other items other than personnel, like maybe software or maybe the rangers?
So specifically, included in that is the RTIC, our Real-Time Information Center, and some other additional software-related items that we did not prioritized for 2026. The Ranger program is not included in that 2.6 number. Yeah, and Don was reminding me, there's also the 2 court positions, actually technically 3 court positions that we didn't fund that were requested that are included in that 2.6 million. Okay. If no other questions, we'll finish with a look at the 10-year models that do not meet their fund balance goal in the outer years. Just want to represent the level of investment that we're proposing in 2026 and 2027, but also to make sure that you all feel comfortable that we're not doing something that's going to harm us moving in the short term. So this is where the general fund ended and where we started our 2026 budget process. And so you could see at the end of 2034, we had about $2.7 million above our fund balance goal. Today, as we are taking the approach of pulling some of that money forward and putting it towards some strategic objectives, as was identified in the presentation, you'll see at the end of 2034, we're about $21 million to the negative. If you move up that far right column to the fund balance ending, you'll show that we're still at about $7 million of positive fund balance. And you will notice we don't go into a negative or unbalanced model, as we defined earlier, until 2032. So really, from today through 2031, if there were no other changes made, we would still be in a positive fund balance model. So by pulling forward $12 million in 2026, and as Don talked about, possibly at least $10 million in 2027, we're not harming anything. We're certainly putting the outer years in a situation that we're going to need to discuss, but we should be able to put those dollars to work next year.
And isn't it possible, this is more of a theoretical financial exercise, but by tackling things now while they are cheaper because of inflation, we actually wind up potentially putting ourselves in a better budget situation because those items won't get more expensive over time?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
That's the hope.
All right.
So that's the general fund. Same situation in parks, as we're pulling forward and trying to figure out some items that we can do, to your point, Mayor, today, and save some dollars. The other thing we're doing with parks is still working through what we need to charge on our field maintenance and field programming. And so if you remember a few years ago, this model was, I'm going to use the word broken. In 2029, you now see that we're doing very well all the way through 2031, and we feel like with another budget cycle, we'll have this model balanced in 2034. And then the final model is our buildings fund, and as we spoke earlier, we're eating away at this one, okay? If we looked at this a couple of years ago, that 2034 forecast was almost $8 million in the hole, and now we've chipped away 2 years in a row, and we're getting it down. Again, we know we still need more funding here, but to your point, Councilmember Pfeiffer, as items come up and as we have available resources, we'll continue to put them here until it's solved. And so I did not share with you our other 11 funds because they're all balanced, and certainly willing to talk to any of them if you would like, but that's our presentation. How'd we do?
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Ooh, 1 minute. You
I
have 1
said
minute.
32 minutes, but
I told you 40 to 50 minutes.
well,
1
first,
minute.
I'll tell you, I appreciate the bold approach to this because we really need to address infrastructure and some other things. And I get, you know, it's great. Not every city does a 10-year, and we do, and we really try to balance to the 10-year, and I appreciate that. But I think pulling some stuff forward to take care of now, especially around infrastructure, is spot on, and we need to do it now. And I think the timing might actually be good for us because I do feel the recession's hitting now finally. I mean, after I don't know how many years it feels like we've been this supposedly coming, I think it's hitting now. I can see it, and you're seeing more layoffs. I think prices will start coming down, and maybe we can benefit and put some money into the economy on these projects at a better rate. So for the taxpayers. So I appreciate you leaning forward into this and putting something bold in front of us that really moves the needle, and I think reinvests in our city, and it's needed. So I appreciate it. So I think this is one of the best ones out of the last decade plus I've been around that I feel like these are tough, but this is well thought out, and I appreciate the time you all put into this. So thank you.
Councilmember Davis.
Yes, thank you again for this. As you know, I always highlight and sticky note my budget book, but everything that I thought that I was going to need to speak to you about has been answered, so Alyssa, you don't need to set us up a 30-minute meeting. But thank you for this, and I too am, I like the fact that we are forward-thinking and we can do things now when they're, well, relatively less expensive and before material gets inflated. So thank you so much for watching out for the city's budget.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Mormon.
Thank you. Just echo what the comments have been made from my fellow council members. Appreciate the work on this and the thinking about using some of our reserve funds for things that are really important, like our infrastructure and roads. I'll be really eager to listen to the details of how we'll spend that money and what that will look like. So excited to have that conversation soon. And then just raise again my concern about suburban studios. I hope we can come up with a plan B if we need to on that, because I'm feeling that that is one of the most successful programs out there right now, and we're making some strong headway, and I hate to see that go away all of a sudden because we lose the state funding.
Councilmember Rupert.
Thank you. I guess I want to piggyback on that a little bit. One, Suburban Suites is associated with, the funding of that is associated with our Navigator funding as well. Would we be repositioning the Navigators somewhere else in the line item or in the budget if we can't continue the Suburban Suites effort?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So we have repositioned the Navigators to the general fund and other areas that are controlled by the city, and so they will continue, even if we happen to lose the grant funding related to the studios. And so we feel strongly that those positions need to continue.
So I'd recognize that it's an expensive program to keep up and running, but I would be interested to know actually how it has performed, how many people we have actually moved from the streets to housing in a sustainable or permanent way, because solving that problem won't be cheap. We know that. It's one person at a time. So I would be very interested to know if we can find other funding sources for it. I wish I could say I had great faith in our ability to get more money from the state, but candidly, I think the state's struggling to service its existing needs. Thank you for also taking to heart the need to use reserves to catch us up on some of these efforts. Streets is the immediate and obvious answer to that. Thank you for putting the $10 million to the, not just the cosmetic, but the essential, really damaged areas of the city. I appreciate that effort as well. One of the items mentioned that we're going to be spending more money on is mandatory laws and regulations, unfunded mandates is another way of putting it. And I'm interested in people hearing what some examples are of those expenditures.
So one of the ones I did offer was the move to electronic equipment, both small equipment related to our parks, and then also from a fleet perspective. Other ones in the PD world. Yeah. What other ones off the top of our head? Yeah.
Okay.
I can jump in. I know I just got
Oh,
a
thank
phone
you.
call
Yep,
this
yep. I
afternoon,
forgot about the court thing, yeah.
and I anticipate that we will have some unfunded mandates coming through municipal courts this coming legislative session. I have no doubt we will, specifically around court transparency.
Thank you.
Councilmember Marriott.
Yeah, so just want to make a comment, recognizing that this is year 2 of a 2-year budget, that this wasn't the year or the opportunity to really do much restructuring. You know, I can see some difficult decisions to be made more in the future than today. I think if you look at just the broad metrics, you know, a couple percent of revenue growth, but 5% higher employee costs. And given that, I don't know what percentage of the city budget is spent on wages, but it's a large percent. Probably uses up all of that revenue growth and then some, would be my guess, just there alone. Never mind the inflation in all the other things the city does and buys and contracts for. Plus then the mandates like, you know, electric lawnmowers instead of the perfectly good stuff that we have. You couple that with, you know, additional requests of the city kind of drifting into spots that are arguable whether they're core city services, like starting to be a human services provider, whether it be through our courts or whether it be through other parts of the city. And then pile on top of that things like, you know, the financial situation that the Arvada Center has gotten into, and the other financial things that the city has gotten involved in, paints to me a more difficult picture than we see here. Now, I'm fully supportive of the pulling expenditures forward and using reserves to do that. I think that's an appropriate way of using reserves. You know, we talk about rainy day funds, but if you never have a rainy day, you're just wasting opportunity by having money stocked away. And over the course of 10 years, it does give the opportunity for the city and the councils to make more difficult decisions. I think the thing to remember with this budget and to think about for the next 2-year cycle is, I don't see how there's not going to have to be some form of either reprioritization or restructuring of the regular spending, you know, the 80% of the, I forget what you called it, the whirlwind, that, you know, there's going to have to be some choices made there. And this isn't done really in this budget, but this is the second year of a 2-year cycle. The opportunity for that will be next year. And I think the city has to start taking a hard look at some of the things that, some of the status quo. And it's things like, what are the limitations of the city's responsibilities towards human services? And if there are limitations there, which I think absolutely there has to be, how are those limitations prioritized? In other words, the limited money that the city has to be able to spend on human services, where is it best spent? Because you can't just spend it everywhere. I think, you know, that's one thing to look at. Another thing to look at is just the overall scope of the organization. I think, you know, you take an organization like the city and, you know, everybody would have the same advice. The city needs to communicate with its residents endlessly, but yet at every thing of controversy that comes up, the thing we always hear is, oh, I didn't know about it till now, and it might have been in the works for a couple of years. At some point, that's not necessarily a failure of not having a quantity of communication. It's probably a failure of just, or it's probably just the way the world is. And that hard decisions probably at some point in the future need to be made on things like, you know, how much is the city spending on things like sustainability that really are nothing more than, or really all the movement is just in adopting current industry standards and not necessarily rewriting the book on our own? Do we need a position for somebody to help guide the city to that, or is the industry doing that for us? How much communication do we need to do? Should our court system be a social services provider, like it's kind of drifted in now? And I think those are some of the hard decisions that need to be made that give the opportunity to restructure the whirlwind so that the situation doesn't arise that the organization consumes all the resources that come to it and the taxpayers aren't getting the services that they paid for. And certainly that's not the situation now, but could easily be in the future. You know, I know one of the things we've talked about at various times in my time on council is it's technically possible for us to use our 98-101 or capital improvement funds to do capital maintenance on streets and improve our streets maintenance. But some of us have thought that, well, maybe that's not the appropriate thing for the taxpayers. You know, they at some point put into our codes that we need to buy some new stuff with some of the money that we get. And I think the object there was to keep the organization from consuming all the dollars just maintaining the organization, and the taxpayers get nothing out of it. And so I'd hate to see us go make those decisions because we feel like we don't have the ability to kind of really prioritize and restructure the 80%, the whirlwind. So, you know, kind of my parting shot here as I exit city council is, in the next 2-year budget, be bold, challenge the status quo, remember what the purpose of the organization is to deliver excellent services to the city in an excellent manner, and that it's protecting our, you know, having a good organization doesn't mean having the biggest organization you can have. It's making sure the organization is right-sized to be able to deliver what the expectations of the citizens and taxpayers of Arvada are. So that's my rambling comment and advice.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I echo the sentiments of many of my colleagues. Well done, Mr. Archer. It is nice. I'm glad to see how we are prioritizing being able to take care of some of these items now to be able to position us for a stronger position in the future. I know the answer to this is yes, but I just have to check. I'm imagining that some of these calculations were based off of anticipated adjustments into our interest rates.
Absolutely.
Yep, I figured you would have. So I just had to make sure.
Yeah, thank you.
And then I guess my last question, and I know this would be accounted for too, but I'm just curious, do we have any urban renewal zones anticipating expiration in the next 10 years?
We have 2. So you have Ralston Fields in 2028, and then you have Village Commons and Northwest in 2034. And so the 2028 numbers are built in. The 2034 will be built in the next cycle.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll be excited to see those. I know in the Northwest, we probably don't have a ton of commercial for that one, but the Ralston Commons should have a decent boost in it, yeah?
That is correct. So there's a pretty large increase that will show up in 2029, and that has been built in.
Okay, nice. Maybe that new economic development position can get over there and continue to make that one even bigger. That will be exciting.
Absolutely.
All right, with that, I echo the sentiments of my colleagues regarding suburban studios. It is an important program. You know, these costs show up on us one way or the other. And so if they are not showing up in a proactive investment by us to try and get people have their needs met and help them change their lives, they show up to us on the back end with camp cleanups and emergency services and other such, and to Mr. Brady, to the police services. And so I appreciate the work that we're doing. I hope that we are competitive. I believe that the numbers out of this have been excellent. I echo the sentiment. I would love an update on how well we're doing on that and how many folks we've housed. I know it's a few dozen by this point for permanent housing. 80? Oh, thank you. 8, that's very impressive. So that's exciting stuff. That's 80 people not on the street anymore with, oh, that had been in the program. Okay, thank you. Apparently Councilmember Mormon has the update I need. I'll grab you after. But nonetheless, I appreciate that and encourage us if the Department of Local Affairs, for some reason or another, because it is accurate, the state is struggling in their own right, then perhaps there are private partners. I hope that we'll look for other opportunities to keep this amazing program going. I see no other lights with that. So, Mr. Wick, is there anything else from you?
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. No, I don't have anything else tonight.
All right, Ms. Morris?
Nothing from me.
All right, we are adjourned.